My 30F husband, 30M, has bad hygiene. My husband and I have been married for over a year now. Before we got married, he had good hygiene. This was something I made sure to observe, so I knew I was committing myself to someone who took care of himself. Not long after our wedding, I noticed he stopped brushing his teeth before going to bed. He would brush his teeth only in the morning. Eventually I found myself repulsed by his bad breath and I stopped kissing him on the lips. So I tried to encourage him to brush our teeth together before bed. It worked for like a week until he told me he didn't want to, that he'd brush his teeth later. He didn't, he always fell asleep without brushing. I didn't stop and I was more direct after that in asking him to brush. He told me I was nagging. So I stopped asking completely. Now I only ask him some nights and he does the same thing, find excuses and end up not brushing his teeth. I kiss him a lot on his cheek and his forehead, but I cannot remember when I last kissed him on the mouth without feeling grossed out. Recently I sat him down and told him how I felt about his oral hygiene. I even got into the details of how he needs to brush his teeth every night to prevent plaque buildup, which is what might be causing his bad breath. He told me that he will. That was a week ago and nothing's changed. He sleeps with his mouth open sometimes and it stinks up the whole room so much that I have to hide my face under the sheets. I don't know how else to make this better. His general hygiene isn't the best either. His hands are always sticky and there is often dirt visible under his fingernails. When he showers he soaps his upper body and crotch plus buttock area, but he doesn't soap his legs or feet because the soap from the upper body will flow downwards, he said. Fortunately he doesn't have strong body odor. As for sex, he always makes sure he showers beforehand, but he doesn't brush his teeth. It's so frustrating. Yes, these are things I've brought up. He just doesn't put any effort to change his habits. Aside from his hygiene, he is a wonderful man who shows up for himself and our relationship. I don't know how else I can tell my husband to clean himself, so I want to kiss him and without hurting his feelings. Please advice. Edit. I have read most comments and I want to address a few concerns. 1. Divorce or separation is absolutely not an option. We have been through a lot of ups and downs together and we never lost faith in each other through it all. He was there for me when I got laid off from my work. I have a new job now though, and started behaving negatively. I do not feel like I owe him for being there for me. What I feel is gratitude for his existence in my life, and he has expressed that he too wants me to continue existing in his life. That is what I intend to do. I will, however, adjust how I treat him. Encourage the good behavior and ignore the undesirable ones. More kisses after brushing. Ignore him when it's bad. 2. He does have an issue with his gums. It would bleed sometimes when he brushes gently, even with a soft toothbrush that his dentist recommended. Thank you to everyone who brought up his oral health. This completely slipped my mind in my frustration. I am not sure what gum problem he has, so I will need to ask him that. In this conversation I also plan to apologize for nagging him about his brushing and not being understanding about his gum problem. My husband is a great person. Reading some of these comments make me sad because he is nowhere nearly as bad as everyone assumes he is. His oral hygiene and lack of feet soaping is the only issue I have ever had with my husband. Maybe he started to get comfortable after our wedding, but who doesn't? We occasionally have conversations where we talk about what we can do better for each other, and I will bring this up again, but I'll include how it's affecting my sexual desire towards him. I didn't do this before as I was afraid of hurting his feelings. Whatever method I try to better this, I want us to come out of this with our relationship still doing well. Thanks to all for your input. I don't know how else I can tell my husband to clean himself, so I want to kiss him and without hurting his feelings. Please advice. You tell him either he gets himself together and starts cleaning his body properly and to floss and brush his teeth. Until that happens, you are too grossed out to be intimate with him. I don't think it's unfair to place this ultimatum on him. Your breath is terrible, but less so if you are freshly brushed. I am also noticing your fingers are not always clean and I don't want you putting them on me, and certainly not in me. When we dated, you were attentive to your hygiene. What changed? Why do you not pay attention to your hygiene as much? It is a sexual turnoff, but more than that, is something that seems to get worse and not better. What can we do about this? Telling me not to nag is not a solution. If I had funk like you do, I would do everything in my power to address it and not minimize the impact my funk has on you. Girl, what is you doing? Can we get a moratorium on hygiene posts? He needs to fix his hygiene, that's gross, he's a grown man. My wife, 35F, told me, 30M. that she doesn't want to work and only wants to travel on my pay. My wife and I have been together for 8 years now. We don't have any kids and have both worked for the majority of the time being together. My current job has me travel a lot for work, however it does pay well and I can manage to pay for a majority of our expenses. My wife has been actively going to college for the last few years while working part-time, because it's required for her degree, and is soon to graduate school. My wife and I were discussing our plans for when she graduates and how that lines up with my work schedule and our plan to move across country for early 2024. I informed her that it'd be out of state for 2 months for work, January-February, and that it wouldn't make sense for her to move with me for those 2 months of work, as once I'm done I'd return back to our potential home in Texas. I suggested to her that she stay with our family while I'm away and save up money so we can buy a nice home. To which she informed me that she didn't want to work and that she'd rather go travel the country with her dad who's retired. She wants to use the extra money we have not paying for an apartment to travel the country. She said that since I'll be traveling a lot next year for work, about 1-month trips at a time, that she'd rather just have me pay for her to travel the country and vacation with her dad instead of saving for a house you won't even be here to live in with me. She also is telling me that since her job doesn't pay all that much in Texas compared to where we are currently located, $30-ish per hour, $16 hour, that she shouldn't have to work anyway because she wouldn't make any money. I told her it's unfair for me to have to pay for everything and that even though I'm traveling, it's not to a vacation resort. I'm actually doing manual labor and will be busy working, not having fun on a job site. I'm just frustrated because somehow I'm the bad guy for suggesting she just get a part-time job somewhere and save up for a month and then use that money strictly for traveling the next month. Just trying to use the extra money we would have to save up for a home. Is there any way to go about this situation? Edit. I'll be traveling a good portion of 2024 into 2025 for work. However, once this job is done I won't have to do any more traveling after the work finishes in 2025. She is saying that she would rather use the money we would be paying for an apartment, my lodging is free due to the contract while on site, to instead travel the country, even though we need to save for a home so once I'm done with this job we can settle down. Is there any way to go about this situation? Yeah, tell her no. You didn't get married with the intention of being a sugar daddy. You got married to have partner and now she doesn't want to be a partner. If she refuses to work, you may have to divorce. And for the love of God, make sure you don't have a kid with her. Maybe she doesn't want to be completely alone, in a state she doesn't know people doing a job she hates. It's understandable that you want her to work, but what are you doing to compromise here? Are you looking for a job that doesn't require you to be gone all the time? Are you compromising about where to live? It seems like neither of you takes the other into consideration. She could get a remote job and travel with you. Info. Why do you move into an area where she can't make money with her degree, when you are not there anyway? Her pay is getting cut in half because of you and you want her to save for a house while you get to travel constantly for work while she's lonely and at home. I, 37 male, got married to my long-term girlfriend, 36 female, of 13 years last year and I made a mistake. We got engaged in 2019 after dating for 10 years and living together for 5. She was so happy and I was happy too, but I was surprised by how muted my feelings were. I found the lockdowns during COVID extremely difficult and became extremely depressed. We had to move our wedding 4 times due to this, but it eventually happened in June 2022. On the road to the wedding I had doubts several times, to the point that we briefly separated in early 2021. My wife doesn't seem to have a sex drive to speak of. In the early parts of the relationship we had sex regularly, but as time went on it became once a week, once a month, and now it feels like it's once a fiscal quarter. I have tried to speak to her about this several times over the last few years and she will say she's just not a lusty person. Whenever I initiate she says, tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. I am sick to death of basically having to bully her for sex and I've given up. However, I don't doubt that she really loves me because she's extremely clingy to the point of being unbearable but yet still seems unbothered about sex. Whenever we do have sex, I get the feeling she can't wait for it to be over. In the weeks leading up to the wedding I had nagging doubts in the back of my mind that I could still get out of this, but I tried to force it down as normal doubts. I naively thought things would get better after they got married. We didn't have sex on our wedding night, and when I tried to initiate the next day she said she was too tired. We had sex twice on our honeymoon. I had to push for the second time, which was in June 2022. I think we've maybe had it twice since then as well. It is really affecting me. I feel so lonely and like there's a rot inside of me. I want to leave, but I know my wife will be devastated and also embarrassed as our marriage didn't even last year. I know she'll suggest couples therapy, but I just can't because I feel so done. The first year of marriage is meant to be happy, but I've never been this unhappy. I don't know why she has no sex drive, whether she's just not interested in sex or just not interested in me, but the affect it has had on my morale cannot be understated. I don't know how to get out of this gently and without hurting her too much. I know she wants children, but I feel like I don't want them with her, and I think it's for the best to break it off soon so she can find someone who wants the same things as her and is more compatible sexually. Do not have kids with this woman. You are going to be divorced in 10 years. Try couples counseling to see if things can get better. Outside of a medical issue, you two have mismatched sex drives. This isn't going to improve with time and likely to get worse. I would let her know the issue needs to be addressed medically or psychologically or both. If not, then you have some decisions to make. I have trouble understanding why it took 13 years and a marriage to finally decide to step away. If she wants sex just for children, then when you have kids your sex life will revert back to what it has been. Yikes. First of all, bullying someone for sex is not cool, ever. That being said, mismatched sex drives happen, and if consistent sex is vital for you, you are not in the right relationship. I have no idea what's happening on your wife's side to cause her lack of interest in sex, but from your post, it seems like you don't even particularly like her. The sex isn't going to improve on its own, so unless both of you are willing to put in a ton of work, it seems you're incompatible. It sounds like there's some depression going on for both of you. You both sound really apathetic and lifeless. Do you work from home? Do you have a social life, vacations, dates? You have to start there. Fix the underlying issues. Usually the sex will come along after. 10 years together is hard. It can get monotonous and boring. And with a global pandemic, well, that just doesn't help things. Deal with the depression, work on getting the spark back, and worry about sex later. My, M23. Current GF, F23, slept with another guy right after our first date. We went to a coffee shop late that morning. She would tell me months later that I gave her butterflies when I kissed her goodbye and that she had a really nice time alone with me. We had been friends but not really close for a few years. She was always the type to party and get drunk and hook up with others, but I was the same and we'd hooked up many times in the past. At the coffee date she told me she would be going out, but I couldn't make it as I was in the middle of exams. Ever since we started dating, we have been communicating well. Calm down on the partying unless it's together, and I can say that we are both madly in love. If you believe in that or not, haha, and we both respect each other. The relationship could not be going any better. Cheating has never been an option for either of us and we've talked about that, and she shows extreme loyalty to me which is reciprocated. A few weeks ago I had found out that she slept with a guy that night that I did not go out with her after our first date. She does not know that I know. I completely understand that we were not dating, and only about a month after the first date, we decided we would be exclusive. The past is just the past. But I cannot help the negative thoughts that creep into my mind saying that I was not the first choice, when I know I am because of how loyal she is to me, and that she has chosen me to be her partner. Whenever that date gets mentioned, all I can think about is what happened that night, and I simply say, you know that wasn't really our first date. I do not want to mention it to her, because the past is the past and I don't want her to feel as if I am living in the past and judging her based on what happened. But how do I cope with the feeling of not being first choice, and the image that comes into mind when I think back on our first date? I don't want this to affect our relationship because of my overthinking. TLDR. Girlfriend slept with another man after first date. Relationship is going better than I could ever ask for. How do I deal with my overthinking and negative thoughts? Might as well end it. Seems like it's eating you up inside and will not get over it. Not saying she is wrong or right, but it seems like it's not your thing and will cause trust issues going forward for you. On your first date she had an inkling that there might be something special about you, but she didn't know enough about you to make it a full commitment. Over time, she's learned that you're her first choice. Sit down and share with her that you know what happened after that first date and how it sometimes bothers you. Don't criticize her, just share how you feel. But also extend her some grace that she did indeed choose you and tell her how much you appreciate her in your life. How long have you been together? Make it a 3 Malio or 6 Malio anniversary on the day you agreed to be only with each other. The change from friends to more. Make that date and anniversary overshadow that other one. It's still an important step, but this is the day things got real. One day you can tell your kids about first date. Perhaps she will mention the butterflies she felt. Should probably leave out the next part where she went for some random dick a couple hours later though. This ain't never going to get out of your head, bud. You didn't make a strong enough impression on her that she wasn't willing to not fuck a random dude. Good luck. You both had several partners before you decided to be exclusive, which just makes it that much better that she chose you. She knows what else is out there, but it's you she wants. No promises were made or broken before you decided to be exclusive. If this happened after you'd made an agreement, then that's another story, but it didn't. Don't let your overthinking be your downfall. There is no reason to dwell on the past. Live in the present and appreciate what you have together and look forward to your future.